So, good morning, everybody. My name is Noa Simon Delso. I'm the scientific director at the organization BeeLife, and I welcome you to this webinar. That is actually a hybrid webinar. Let's see how it works. About the accessibility to veterinary medicinal products in beekeeping in Europe. We are here today. I mean, we are here. You are in your own house, those of you who are remotely, but I am in Bucharest together with my colleagues from ROMAPIS, that is the Romanian Federation of Beekeepers, who invited us to jointly have this webinar in the framework of their weekend of apiculture and nature. And that's going to be very nice. So I have here Konstantin and Christina, who also are going to participate today in the webinar. The accessibility to veterinary medicinal products is a European-wide problem, and it materializes, as we are going to see today, in different ways in different countries. So we are going to see the different situations, I mean, according to the national conditions. This webinar is organized in the framework of the project B-THENET. That is a European project that aims to support beekeeping by helping distributing and kind of validating beekeeping, good beekeeping practices. We BeeLife, in the framework of B-THENET, we are in charge of the exchange with stakeholders. And that's the reason today we have organized this webinar, in which we have included not only, let's say, professionals from the beekeeping sector, but also veterinarians, people from industry producing veterinary products, authorities, etc. And we hope to have a good discussion. I would like just to welcome, I'm going to say to say that within B-THENET, we have already launched our first of 4 surveys, where we already got the preferences for beekeepers towards low input pesticides, not pesticides, but acaricides, let's say, applied to varroa control. These are based on more than 2,000 answers from 22 different member states. So I think that gives already a very nice situation view of the situation in the field. And with this point of information, I would like to introduce already to our speakers today. The first one is Barbara Cyrus, who is going to present. She is part of the EMA, the European Medicines Agency. So this is the agency in charge of the risk assessment of medicines in Europe. And she is going to give us the European perspective and also a view of the regulatory framework now for veterinary products. Barbara, I leave you to it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now let's hope it works. There we are. Can you see the screen?
Yes, it works well.
Okay, good. Now I put in presentation mode. I will lose access to the conference in that case. So if anything is doing, don't raise your hand, but say something.
Okay.
Right. Presentation mode. Right, there we are. So what I would like to do is give you an overview on the regulatory framework for the licensing of veterinary medicines and what is new in terms of particular of bee licensing of bee medicines. So the legal basis for the licensing of veterinary medicines is Regulation 2019-6, which came only in force last year. And that is what I would like to address, mainly what has changed with this new legislation. The legislation covers all the EU. So not just these medicines that are centrally licensed by the EMA, but also those ones that are decentralized or nationally licensed by national agencies. And it addresses anything to do with veterinary medicines, the licensing, the post-authorization, labeling, whatever is happening after the authorization in terms of variations, pharmacovigilance, inspections, manufacturing sites, wholesalers, importation, and so on. So it's a whole lot of issues connected to the veterinary field that is addressed in this legislation. It's quite a big document, but the majority of the issues in it are not really massively changed from what was before. There is a lot of terminology changes, there are more details included, but there are only a few areas that are really completely new, and some of them will affect bees. For those of you who are not really familiar with the licensing of medicines, which I assume the majority of people will be, just a mini crash course in the licensing here. So for any veterinary medicine, a company has to submit a dossier, and that is usually consisting of 4 parts. Part 1, administrative stuff, so application form, paperwork, contact details, the labeling and so on. And part 2, 3, and 4 are the scientific parts where assessors in the agency will sit and assess all the data. So that confirms the quality, which is basically like a cookbook to prepare the medicine. So active ingredients, where they come from, and how the whole medicine is going to be prepared. The safety documentation is covering anything concerning the safety of the animal concerned, of the environment, of user, and if it's a food producing medicine, for food producing animal, all the residues. So a file for bees will have a residue file as well. And then finally, the efficacy documentation that includes preclinical studies where the dose is going to be developed, and clinical trials to see how it works in the field. So the regulatory authorities will assess these data, and only if there is a positive benefit risk balance, allow the license. The special considerations for veterinary medicines for bees, and I'm saying this now as I'm not a quality expert, but from the main differences, there are not huge differences between species in terms of the quality assessment. What is special for bees is obviously the containers, the way how it is administered. So, and you see a few pictures here. That is something you wouldn't do with a dog or a cat or cattle or so. So the pharmaceutical form on the containers are not, let's say, the standard application. In terms of safety, we will usually have the data, difficulties with getting data concerning pharmacology, toxicology, because most of the data on the active substance will relate to laboratory animals, mammals. And the relevance then to bees or the parasites is something very difficult to achieve. In terms of user safety and environmental safety, this is not specifically bee specific, but most of the products that are licensed are antiparasitics, and they might also affect the target species, the bee itself, or other organisms, for instance, people in the environment. So they, by nature, they are not easy substances to deal with. And then finally, with the residues, it's a very different scenario if you speak about bees than about other animals, because usually you put the medicine into the animal, let's say a cow, and if you want to have get milk, the cow will metabolize the medicine after a while, so it gets less and less and less. So at the very end, the milk will have less active substance. With bees, it's different because you don't get the honey directly from the bee, you get it from the storage, the wax. And the way how to disappear from the hive is more by physical means. So either you remove the wax or the active substance needs to degrade somehow. So it's a very different scenario to what we normally see in mammals. For the efficacy, again, it is very difficult to have pharmacology data because they are simply not available, not very many. So we know that bees is not a very widespread species, and investigations are not very common. We also have the issue that a beehive contains very many different types of bees. So they all have their different life cycle, the brood, workers, drones, queens. So it's not the bee we are investigating, but it's a whole range of different lifestyles. So again, the target animal safety, for instance, will usually be assessed not based on the bee, but on the hive development. When it comes to the dose, it's usually determined in individual animals, which is possible. You see a little picture here on the screen in cages, but then you will need to extrapolate this dose per bee in the dose per hive. The hive size, we all know it will fluctuate on the time of the year, the hive type, and so on. So it's not that easy. And also the route of administration is very special for bees, because some of the products are not administered directly to the animal, but they will be carried over from animal to animal. So it's not that straightforward as you would think it is for instance, for a product that is injected into a dog. Again, it is difficult depending on the type of target you have to get the medicine into it. If you speak about kept brood, it's a very short time frame where you reach the brood when you want to treat. In terms of clinical trials, this is not specific for bees, but for any antiparasitic. For a European license, which will be valid all across Europe, you will need to test the medicine in different climatic zones. You will have the different hive types. So animal husbandry is different between countries, and bee breeds might be different. So it's a variety of data that will be required, not just the odd bee in, let's say, in Germany or so. You will really need to have different areas covered. There is guidance available on our website as well. So it's not just legislation, there's also guidance, but again, it's a bit limited. And quite a while ago in 2009, we had a workshop, which is a similar topic as this, conference today, to see what could be done to increase availability of medicines. And something has been done, something is still unfortunately not achieved. There could be more information. I assume the links will work in the presentations when they are distributed. The most important one is probably the Varroa guideline, which was recently updated to bring it in line with the new legislation. And that does concern the licensing of veterinary medicines for bees intended to control Varroa. But it could be also used for other indications if, let's say, the target animal safety studies or something like that could be used for other indications. There is also a VRCH guideline, which means a guideline not just valid in Europe, but across globally. So this will also be valid in Japan, in America, and so. And this concerns the study recommendations in regard how to investigate residues in honey. Because the majority of the bee products are probably antiparasitic guidelines, it might also be useful to have a look in other antiparasitic guidance documents, which are published on our website. And because the website is difficult to navigate, I thought a quick slide. If you look for it, look under veterinary regulatory, research development, and then on the left-hand side, you can see the different areas, guidelines, and so on. So that is a way how to find it. So after this brief introduction, I just wanted to focus on what is new regarding bees. And the big news, or the biggest step, is that in previous legislations, bees were never mentioned specifically. Now with new regulation, there has been specific reference now made to bees. The one thing is that medicines for bees will have a considerably longer data protection period than other medicines. So the standard would be 10 years. There are exceptions for 14 years, but for bees, it will be 18 years data protection for new applications. So that is hopefully one incentive for promoting availability here, that companies might get more interested in it. There's a second incentive or consideration in regard to bees, and that is called the withdrawal period when used under the cascade. This is the case when the veterinarian cannot prescribe a medicine for bees for the indication he would like to use it, and he needs to use another substance or medicine. There's a rather complicated calculation in the legislation how he would then calculate the withdrawal period, meaning the time until when the honey can be used, which will not really work for bees. And that's why the legislation here makes an exception that if this case happens, that a veterinarian has to use another medicine where no withdrawal period has been determined, that he or she can assess the specific situation and then establish this withdrawal period. Another mentioning of bees, or of honey, in fact, honeys and wax, is in regard to the dossier requirements for the residue tests. There is now specific mentioning of honey or wax as it is. So this is not really new, because the approach was already taken before, but it is now new in legislation. So then there are other aspects, not specifically for bees, but they might be relevant for bee applications. And the big one is the resistance now. I said before that the benefit-risk balance will need to be positive, and the new legislation has now introduced a special scenario in terms of resistance development. So resistance is now a recognized risk, which really needs to be seriously taken into account when assessing a dossier. And in terms of bees, most of the products are antiparasitics. This will need to be addressed by an applicant when they submit an application, and it will most likely also affect the labeling, for instance, or prescription warnings also. So it's probably nothing massively new or restrictive, but it will affect certain parts of the dossier, I would expect. So the labeling warnings is quite reasonable to expect that there will be some warnings. Bees, we all know there is a limited species. So there is, in the past, we had already incentives for so-called limited markets. And the new legislation has strengthened the approach to promote limited market applications by introducing a special legal provision that will require considerably less safety and efficacy data than before. If a veterinary medicine is considered such an application, the provision will require that a committee will recognize that the benefit of the availability on the market of this medicine is bigger than the fact that some documentation has not been provided. It sounds a bit complicated, but it basically means that if a product is super important, then we don't want so many data, and it is fine. So this is one approach which I think could help bee products to come forward. Another area that is mentioned in the legislation is, again, this is nothing new, that small and medium-sized enterprises will be getting some incentives. The member states are encouraged to do so. From the EMA side, we can say we have an own SME office to support applicants. And I think Dominic might be able to tell you more about this one. I've never been on the receiving end, so that would be good. And this is not new, but I thought I put it up in this conference to make sure that there is a little bit of help. From my experience, is the bee products are, most of them have very specific, and they have a very specific knowledge, and it's usually smaller companies who might be interested in. So these SME incentives might be very useful. The new legislation also makes a number of changes to post-authorization steps. They are mostly relevant for the regulators and companies, not so much for the beekeepers. Apart from the pharmacovigilance reporting, there are some changes, and I'll come to that in a moment. And what is definitely new, and that has been introduced only recently, is something called the Union Product Database, which I hope you find very useful, because this is a database where for the first time, EU-wide, national and centralized products will be displayed. So that could be helpful to find a medicine that could be used. Regarding the pharmacovigilance, this is the monitoring of safety and efficacy once a medicine has been licensed. So throughout the life cycle, once it's medicine on the market, it will be monitored throughout the life cycle. And what is encouraged is that any adverse events are going to be reported. And these adverse events could concern the species itself, so the bees. It could be other animals in the environment. It could be people or the environment. It could also be a lack of efficacy, or if you find residues after the withdrawal period. So these are the main areas, and it's usually reported by the veterinarians, but all the animal owners can do so. And the package leaflet, you know, the little labeling package leaflet, which is now new under the legislation, will contain contact details to make it easier to report these. When it comes to bees, it's also normally what the hive size, the hive will be reported, not the individual bee. So this is probably obvious, but that is just to make it clear. What happens then is the adverse events will be reported in a database, and data from these adverse events will also be monitored by the marketing authorization holder, so by the companies. And if there are any signals that indicate there is a specific issue with a certain medicine or with a certain ingredient or target species, this will be flagged up. And then from the regulatory side, we will review these signs, and then appropriate action will be decided. So that is something that will be then decided on a European level. There's this little diagram here can show you a little bit what was reported in the last couple of years with bees. So the blue column is adverse events, and the orangey thing is fatal cases, which in this case will refer to colony collapse or hive death. It's in the nature of things that if something goes wrong, it's more likely that somebody's reporting this. It's also when a medicine is new on the market, people are more likely to report it. So the number does not 100% reflect the nature of a medicine, because it's more the reporting incidence is higher when something is newly on the market. People are more aware of it.
Barbara,
yeah.
Sorry, please advance. Yeah.
Okay, so the last slide here is searching medicine. So this is the UPD, that is the database I was talking about. You can now search by honeybees. You get up a long list of medicines where you then can look for the different routes of administration, active substance, and so on, or whether they're available in which member states, and could do a find. And I think this is the last picture here. You might be aware of this list that has been published by the heads of medicines agencies, which lists all the bee products in Europe. That has been published in the last couple of years, every 2-3 years or so. We expect another publication to come in July, so this month, but depending how the UPD is working, this will then be discontinued because we don't need it any longer. The advantage of this list is it also lists the indications. And I think that was the last slide here. Okay.
Thank you very much. Barbara, how do we enter questions? I think we enter questions, well, we have time for one question. So yeah, please.
Oops. No, I don't want to miss.
So Fanny wanted to make a question, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Barbara. That was really very clear. Well, for the people that they don't know me, I'm Fanny Hagina. I'm a researcher in Greece, but I'm also the president of the Bee Health Commission in Apimondia. So I would like to wear this hat today. And all the questions that are related to what we would like to do in Apimondia in the way that we see it from the beekeepers' point of view, not from the researchers' point of view. And the question is, but in fact, well, before the question, I was following this the situation of the medicinal veterinary medicinal products since this first workshop that you mentioned in 2009. I remember, and I do agree with you that there were most of the questions, they were addressed there, and we still have the problems. We didn't know all the details about the new regulations, which is really good. Now, the question that comes to that is that at that time, we were talking about the minor species, minor uses. Is this implemented in what you talked about, the limited, you talked about the limited market area. And then, in fact, the regulation, it's about all veterinary medicine. So there is nothing specific for bees. It can apply to bees maybe only, but we don't have any, how to say, any deviations for bees, do we?
Well, first of all, the minor species, minor use, limited market, there are some little legal differences, but generally speaking, it's the same one. We don't use the term minor species. It sounds a bit odd, I suppose. And limited market reflects the situation a bit better, because you might also have a very minor market, a very small market in a major species. So the limited market is a terminology used now. And yes, indeed, we do have still some difficulties with the old limited minor use policy. It was also possible to have reduced quality data requirements, which unfortunately is not longer an option under the limited market application. However, the CVMP has said they're very sort of open for applications for minor or limited markets. So we hope we find a way around somehow, but we can't really deviate from the instruction we were given by the Commission in terms of data requirements. And the second question, I'm sorry, the one was the limited market, and the other one?
No, in fact, it was the same question.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
I have several other questions. It's just I don't want.
Yes,
maybe I can post them.
We are going to stop here, Fanny, because otherwise we stop. And this was just the first presentation of the morning, and we have many more to come. So now I'm giving the floor. Now we are going to see what is the situation in the different countries, and please keep your questions until the end. So now we are going to have 4 presentations in a row. First, Peter with Slovenia, then Ellen with Belgium, then Christina with Romania, and then Juan with Spain. So Peter, please.
Hello to everyone. I hope that you see my presentation. No, please confirm.
I confirm.
Oh, very good. Yes, now I will present situation about this topic in Slovenia. Probably.
Sorry, Peter, the only thing is please put it in a presentation mode.
In my screen is already on the presentation mode, so I will maybe stop and put it one more time. Maybe it will help.
No. Well, anyway, we will keep like this because we only see not the presenter mode, but if you can make it bigger, then it's okay, I guess. I don't know. Maybe if you have two screens, maybe that's the other screen that you need to share.
Yeah, I have just one.
Okay.
Maybe this option will work better.
No, it's the same, but just go on with it. We just go with the show.
Oh, okay. Now you see second slide?
No, only the first one.
Oh, then it's a problem because on my computer is already on the second slide.
So just don't get out of the presenter mode and just keep the normal one. But the only thing is make it bigger so we can see it. Yeah.
It's now bigger?
It's bigger and we can see it.
Okay, it is on second slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. So basic information about beekeeping in Slovenia. We have quite a lot of beekeepers in Slovenia. You know, it is a very small country, but we have almost 12,000 beekeepers and more than 200,000 bee colonies. So we have in some areas problems that the density of bees is very, very high. And we are using our local beehives, which is a little bit different. We call it AGE hives. And our beekeepers are more or less hobby beekeepers. Just 5% it is professional beekeepers. So mostly they are hobby beekeepers with just 18 bee colonies, and we don't produce enough honey for our consumption. So it is not hard to sell honey which we produce, but we also import a lot of honey. And it is also important that here in Slovenia we have only one subspecies, which is Carnica, which is autochthonous in Slovenia, and of course we have very rich history. Regarding the the vets. We are very glad that we have in Slovenia 8 apiculture veterinarians. They are very good. We are very proud that we have it, and they help us a lot. Otherwise, it will be very hard to have bees in Slovenia, especially because of this very high density. And we are very glad that they all have very good knowledge about honeybee health. Some of them, they are also beekeepers, so they know how to treat bees, they know our problems, so it is very easy to talk with them. But of course, there's first task, it is to prevent the spread of American foul brood. You can imagine that because we have such a high density of bees around the country, then these diseases could be a big problem. So their first task is to take care for these diseases. But of course, they help us also how to treat varroa, because this is also one of the biggest problems here in Slovenia. And sometimes they also carry some specific research on field of the beekeeping, bee health. And I must also say that 5 or even 10 years ago, we have huge problems also with accessibility of a veterinary or drugs for varroa. But nowadays, this problem, it is more or less solved. So you may see the list of what is accessible here in Slovenia. The list, it is right now, it is quite long. Of course, we want to have it even more, but in comparison with situation 5 or even 10 years ago, the situation, it is much better. Also, nowadays it is for beekeepers not very hard how to access those medicines. Some years ago, it was possible just to buy those medicines through directly those 8 vets which are in Slovenia. And in this case, it was very hard because it was possible to buy just during the morning and in the or few hours in the afternoon, but not in the late in the evening. But nowadays, it is possible to buy bee medicines also in other shops selling the medicines for other domestic animals. Of course, they must have special registration. So it is not possible to buy in the shops where they are selling other beekeeping equipment, but it is possible on few places around Slovenia. So accessibility nowadays, it is not a problem here in Slovenia. Of course, beekeepers must come when he would like to buy some drugs with this diary. You may see one picture on this slide. So the person who sell you the medicals for bees, in the same time, he or she wrote that she sell those beekeepers those numbers or so many packaging of that drugs to the beekeepers, and beekeepers must use that diary also to put all information about using that drugs in their bee colony. So this is very important, and our beekeepers, they are well aware that they must be very careful when they are reading information in this diary.
Peter, please accelerate a little bit. No, that accelerate a little bit.
Okay, I will. So I mentioned that we don't have a lot of big problems with medical drugs in beekeeping sector, but of course we have some problems. Beekeepers all the times they are talking that prices are very high. It is also a little bit strange that some medicines are taxed on the lower price, and some of them they are taxed at the higher rate as 22%. So it will be very nice that all medicines will be taxed just by the lower tax. And of course, it is Slovenia, a very small market, so not all medicines are available in Slovenia, and this is problem sometimes because some beekeepers who are living near the borders, they see the situation in other countries and they would like to buy it in other countries, but this is not possible. Sometimes it is also a problem that we have problem with availability of medicines at the time of the treatment, because all beekeepers would like to treat bees in July, August, September, and sometimes it is not possible to buy it because they don't have it enough for all big colonies we have in Slovenia. And we think that there are also some problems that all the tests are often carried out not on the Italian and black bee and not on our Carniolan bee, which is a little bit different than others. And of course, as I already mentioned, in Slovenia, we have different hive system, and sometimes translation, the instructions of the use of medicine in LR beehives are not sufficient to our effective use of medicines. So we also have some proposals for solution. It will be very easy for us, for small market, if it will be allowed to buy medicines also in other countries, especially for small countries, because it is not hard to go to neighboring country and to buy others. So it will be very glad or very good. We think that more tests will be done on our Carniolan bee. We think that also this is sometimes a problem. And the last thing also that before the translation and to put to the cell, it will be good to verify the translated medication instruction from the LR hive system to the AGE hive system. So these are our problems, and I hope that we solve maybe one or two. It will be nice if all of them. Okay, this is everything from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So we pass now to Ellen Daniels from Belgium, who is going to show a similar situation, but but in a different context. We see your presenter, not the presenter mode.
Yes, I'm almost there. All right, now it should be okay, I guess. All right, good. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ellen Daniels. I work at Henneby Valley, which is a part of Ghent University in Belgium, and I was asked to give you a short presentation on how the accessibility of veterinary medical products is in Belgium. So I will give you a short overview of the Belgian beekeeping sector. I will go to the products that are authorized in Belgium and the accessibility or not the accessibility of some products, the situation about the veterinarians and some problems. So first of all, the amount of beekeepers we have in Belgium, it fluctuates a bit every year, but we are always somewhere around 10,000 beekeepers in Belgium. So that means the Flemish and the French-speaking part together. And we have more or less around 60 or 70,000 hives in total in Belgium. So which means that we have an average of 7 beehives per beekeeper, which means that most of our beekeepers are hobbyists. So we only have a handful of professional beekeepers to my knowledge. And most of our beekeepers that are linked with the beekeeping association. So that's a good thing. So that's in general and very short the situation about our beekeepers. What's the situation with the VMPs? So with the veterinary medicines, every year we have a meeting with the Federal Agency on Food Safety, where we discuss what products on varroa control should be available in Belgium, and they always write a recommendation. Every year it's updated, so and it's available online. So it's something like this that you see on the screen, where we have a list of all the products that beekeepers are obliged to use. And the list that was this year mentioned is this one. So it's here it's in Dutch, but we have it in 2 languages available. And here you see the products that are available this year in 2023. So you see that on the thymol-based products, we have 3. Then I saw there was a small mistake on the flumethrin, so I've added polyvariello also there. Then we have 3 that have oxalic acid. And then we have 2 relatively new ones. The amitraz-based Apivar is only recently added 2 years ago. And then this year it's also we also have one with formic acid. So these are the products that are authorized in Belgium to use for varroa control. So this is a file that is distributed by the Federal Agency of the Food Safety, but then we have another agency in Belgium that is concerned with the medical products, and that's FAGG it's called. So it's the medicines department, where they have a very nice overview. So this is just a print screen from a part of their website where you can look at all the products on honeybees. So maybe if I put my pointer in this, so you should be able to see. So I've selected the list for honeybees here, where you can see all the products available in Belgium. And I've put them in a list accordingly to the active ingredient here. So here, the nice thing on this list, what you can see is that with the green or the gray dot you see in front, it gives the difference. If it's authorized in Belgium, then you see a green dot. And if it's commercialized, then you should see both. So the problem we have in Belgium, well, I think the biggest problem we have with these products is that sometimes they are authorized. So like, for instance, this one here, BeeLife is authorized and it's also commercially available. But for a lot of the products, they are not commercialized. So for instance, here, Apivar, like I told you with Amitraz, it's authorized, so it should be available, but it's not commercialized, which means that beekeepers can't get their hands on it. So that's a problem we often see. And also with, for instance, Varomet, I know this product is well, widely used, or there's a lot of interest in using Varomet because it contains oxalic acid and formic acid both. It's a very nice product, but the problem is it is authorized and commercialized, but often pharmacists can't get their hands on it because the distributor is not getting into stock. So that's an issue that we have a lot. If I go to the veterinarians in Belgium, we have a very nice distribution, although we are a very small country, even smaller than Slovenia, but we have 26 veterinarians with knowledge on beekeeping. Well, I should say that the knowledge on beekeeping is not all very high for all of them. I know that there has been a crash course last year where some of them had a course of, I think it was 2 days, where they got a crash course on beekeeping. Some of them are beekeepers themselves, but not all of them. So I think the knowledge on beekeeping for these veterinarians could be increased a bit. But as you can see on the map here, we have a very nice distribution, so that should be very nice. So here I've listed a few of the problems that we are facing in Belgium. So there seems to be a discrepancy between authorized products and commercialized products. So it's not because they are on the list of the Federal Agency of Food Safety that beekeepers can use them. They are not always commercialized in Belgium. So it's very confusing for beekeepers to understand what product can I use and what is available for me. Then extra is that some distributors don't take it into stock because there are not a lot of users, and a lot of beekeepers can get their hands on other products from other countries. So that's more the illegal circuit then. I think the cascade system is also quite complex. I have actually not a very good idea on how much beekeepers or how much veterinarians are actually using it in Belgium. But it's quite complex, I know. And normally I think we have several good products available that should be commercialized and available for beekeepers. So normally they would not need the cascade system. But the problem is if the product is not available and they can't get their hands on it from a pharmacist, then they need to. I think there could be a little bit an increase in knowledge in beekeeping for several veterinarians, although we are on the good track, I think. This is something that has been put a lot of work in the last few years. So we are on a good track, I think, for this. Another problem, I think, is that a lot of beekeepers, they buy their products online. I think that's not only in Belgium the case. They can buy it everywhere online. They can get their hands on a lot of other products. So the ease of this is also making the black market a bit, it's an issue. And I think the control of the government could help in this fact. I think now there's not actually an active control system. It's a policy of toleration in Belgium that a lot of beekeepers can use a lot of products. I think there could be some improvement in this part. So this was very short. I hope I covered the most important things here.
Yes, thank you, Ellen. So now from the little countries, let's say, who have mainly problems of distribution, now we are going to go to the big countries. So we start with the presentation of Dr. Surlea, and I have to share my presentation, my screen. It's here. And now it's you who have to tell me that you see it. Yeah, so you see.
Bună dimineața tuturor, Cristina Șurlear, lucrez la Ministerul Agriculturii și sunt cercetător în cadrul universității și împreună cu reprezentanții de la ROMAPIS am pregătit lucrarea cu produsele veterinare și sănătatea stupinelor din România. Ca și realității în apicultura românească, facem precizarea că avem un număr de stupine înregistrate, 32.277, și un număr de colonii înregistrate care au fost pregătite pentru iernat în anul 2022 și raportate către Uniune de 2.355.497. Avem un număr de 5 ferme de elită și un număr de 305 ferme de multiplicare. Ca și stupine comerciale, în România, cu peste 75 de colonii, sunt undeva la peste 60%. Stupinele de subzistență, cele care sunt între 40 și 75 de colonii și reprezintă undeva la 25%. Iar stupinele de amatori cu sub 40 de colonii reprezintă 15% la nivelul țării noastre. Ca și realități în apicultura românească, putem spune că stupinele care au aplicat pentru Programul Național Apicol în anul 2022 au fost undeva la 7.807 apicultori, care dețineau peste 657 de colonii de albine, din care 4.300 erau apicultori cu până la 75 de colonii, iar 3.453 apicultori cu peste 75 de colonii de albine. De regulă, intensitatea sprijinului financiar pentru tratamentele autorizate pentru albine prin Programul Național Apicol a fost de 100%, mai puțin TVA-ul aferent. Ca și amenințări pentru sănătatea albinelor, sunt bolile și dăunătorii, agricultura intensivă pe locul 2, schimbările climatice și un management defectuos. La nivelul României, circulația produselor medicinale veterinare trebuie să fie autorizate prin Institutul pentru Controlul Produselor Biologice și Medicamentelor de uz veterinar sau autorizare centralizată EMA. Dar există și clandestin, preparare neautorizată sau produse introduse în țară prin contrabandă, popularizate pe rețelele de socializare și distribuite către apicultori prin târguri sau site-uri ilegale de vânzare online. Situația produselor antiparazitare autorizate sau neautorizate aflate pe piață pentru tratamentul varozei. La nivelul țării noastre, autorizate prin Institutul de Controlul Medicamentelor sunt 14 produse, iar autorizate EMA 3 produse. Clandestine după imaginația, incompetența și interesele particulare ale unor comercianți ilegali. Dintre cele 17 produse autorizate în România, 13 se eliberează numai pe bază de prescripție medicală, iar 4 nu necesită prescripție. Ca și substanțe active a produselor autorizate aflate pe piață, sunt acaricide sintetice, cum afos, amitraz, piretroizi de sinteză, substanțe organice naturale cu acizi organici, acid oxalic, acid formic, uleiuri eterice, extracte naturale din plante, protofil, amestec de uleiuri esențiale pentru combaterea nosemozei. Problemele rezultate din utilizarea tratamentelor neautorizate. S-au identificat un risc de sănătate pentru albine prin aplicarea de produse formulate pentru alte utilizări sau după rețete empirice care conțin substanțe cu potențial toxic pentru albine, risc de ineficacitate a soluției de tratament neautorizat, mărirea riscului de instalare a rezistenței la parazit, risc de intoxicare pentru apicultori, potențial ridicat de contaminare a produselor apicole cu reziduri periculoase pentru consumator și totodată poluarea mediului înconjurător. Ca și propuneri, am dorit scheme naționale de prevenire, diagnostic și combatere a stărilor patologice la albine, mărirea numărului de laboratoare de diagnostic, programe de formare și de pregătire continuă pentru apicultori, pentru sanitari și pentru consilierii apicoli, elaborarea cadrului legal pentru funcționarea cabinetelor de medicină veterinară specializate pentru apicultură, colaborarea strânsă între organizațiile apicultorilor și medicii veterinari cu experiență apicolă. Vă mulțumim pentru atenție.
Thank you very much, Christina. And with this, we go to Juan. Sorry, I need to stop my sharing. I guess I have done it. Juan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So can you please share your presentation, or you want me to share it for you? No, it's good.
Can you see?
Yes.
Right. So good morning, everyone. This is Juan from Spain. Right. So in Spain, the main characteristics of our sector is basically the amount of hives that we are managing, which is over 3 million beehives in the whole country. We have over 36,000 bee farms, and 18% of those bee farms are professional, which means they're handling over excuse me, over 150 beehives, and those professional beekeepers handles more than 80% of the beehives. So most of the bee colonies in Spain are handled by professionals, right? Another characteristic of the Spanish beekeeping is the migratory beekeeping. So mainly professionals move hives south to north, north to south, east to west, etc. Probably the amount of hives we have in our country is the effect of the subsidies. In 10 years, the amount of beekeepers has increased in 47%, which is quite remarkable. And another of the characteristics of the Spanish beekeeping is that more hives doesn't mean necessarily more honey production. So in like 20 years ago, we used to produce over 35,000 tons of honey each year, and today with almost 1 million beehives more, we produce 30,000 tons. So it's quite the opposite of the expected. Right. The amount of products is This is from the Spanish medicine agency. We have 14 different registrations, but only 7 molecules. 3 of them are organic and 4 synthetic. As you can see, is quite common in the rest of Europe. We have basically the molecular that we use more is the amitraz, is the widespread treatment, as well as the oxalic acid. Oh, sorry. Right. How do we keep beekeepers access to those treatments? Some of them are with veterinary prescriptions, which are basically the synthetic molecules, the amitraz, flumethrin, taufluvalinate, and also one of the molecules for organic beekeeping, the formic acid, needs also veterinary prescriptions, and the rest without a prescription. But every treatment must be recorded in the farmer's book. So every year the government checks this book and checks the census of the farm, and also that the bees has got the compulsory yearly treatment that is, as I said, is compulsory for every hive in the country. Do we have vets in our country? Yes, we do. Actually, we have a big, well, it's not big. It's only 65 vets, but they are from every part of the country. They represent farms. They represent beekeeping organizations, laboratories, the government, investigations. So it's kind of wide representation of the sector. We have yearly meetings. We have like a continuous training, online or face to face, and also we started to have meetings with the Ministry of Agriculture, just to expose the problems we have in the country with the sanitary problems, etc. Also, yeah, I need to mention that in next year we will be organizing a bee health meeting in Madrid. Right. The main problems regarding accessibility to veterinary medicine products is well, most of the beekeepers belongs to what we call ADS, and it's like an association of beekeepers that comes together to share a program, a sanitary program in a certain area. In each ADS, there must be a veterinarian. That's my case. I work for an ADS in the south of Spain. And but in the coming months or years, there will be a new law that every beekeeper must have a veterinary as an advisor, just to handle the sanitary products and the health of the colonies. Some of our problems are the deviations from the normal, which is some beekeepers prefers to use like homemade recipes, some of them with authorized products, like for example oxalic acid, and some others just use whatever they hear from I don't know, Facebook or any social media, like for example actinitrine. We have found in some cases of actinitrine in the hives, which is, I think that's kind of a problem, as the Romanian representative mentioned before. As I said, there is a kind of an abundance of unverified information, like in Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups, which is sometimes it can be a problem. And also they can have access to unregistered treatments via Amazon or even AliExpress. So our proposals are more research. I think we need a wider, a greater variety of acariciidal products. We need to invest more in formation for professionals. So it's not only treatment; it's also handling and management of the beehives. I think veterinarians must be more in the field, just monitoring what beekeepers do and how they treat and how they handle the main problem, which is varroa. And in Spain, it's also compulsory the treatment for at least once a year, and the government pays for that. So I think it's important to keep that subsidy as a guarantee for the beekeepers to keep using legal treatments. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. I see that the comments that have been in the chat are more comments more than questions, I think. But I lost the track of the chat and I cannot find it. Here. Sorry, there is a new one. So there is only one question from Giovanni that to Juan, that it seems that in no sense that Max is the only product organic acid based that need a veterinary prescription, while others not. Do you agree on that? So do you think that Max should still get a veterinary prescription or not?
To be honest, I don't know why they have a prescription, and some of the other products containing formic acid doesn't need a prescription, like Formic Pro. I don't know the reason behind that. I don't really know. I think it's good to have kind of a control and not to have access to any treatment out of the counter. So I think it's good to have a prescription behind, just to certify that there's a professional behind a decision for treatment the varroa.
Thank you. And well, Fanny does a question that if there are differences in regulations regarding bees, I guess so. So I don't think that we actually need to go for that. So I think we are a little bit late on schedule, so we are going to just give the floor to our colleagues from the pharmaceutical industry to show their view on how it is this problem of accessibility on their side. And then we can discuss. I don't have access to the program, so I don't know who goes first, but I just say Dominique and then Remy.
Good morning, everyone. Can I get a quick feedback if you can hear and see me or see my presentation?
We hear you and we see the full.
Perfect. Okay. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for this invitation for us and also our colleagues from France as representatives from the industry. I believe this is a good step and it's very important. The presentations we had so far I found very interesting. And it is interesting to me to see how I'm going to say the beekeeper side and association side looks at the problems we face from the other side, from the distribution side. And I can see that we share a lot of similar concerns. We just look at them from the opposite direction. So I will spare introduction to myself, to our company, the product VMP, which this presentation is about. All of that, please, if you're interested, go to our website and feel free to contact me. In the end, you will have my contact details. So I was asked to give a very brief presentation of our experience with the European authorization process. You have gotten an excellent presentation by Barbara Cyrus from the EMA, and that has basically outlined it in a nutshell. I have to say, Barbara, as complex as this is, kudos. I think it was very good. We have run through that process that Barbara described, and let me move on. And there is, in the beginning, a fundamental decision to be taken by companies wanting to register a veterinary medicine, in our case for bees, in the European Union. So you can go either by national registrations. There are systems to then multiply them or expand them to other countries, but that's one principle. And the other is what Barbara presented, not exclusively, but I will say focused on, is the so-called centralized procedure, where you or us in that case, as a company to register a product, will approach the European Medicines Agency, and the European Medicines Agency will in the end take the decision if the product is granted a marketing authorization. Barbara has mentioned the so-called benefit risk analysis. So the agency will decide, is that product worth the risks that come with the product? Normally all pharmaceutical products have, of course, the trade-offs. They are very strong active chemicals. So there is hardly any pharmaceutical product that doesn't come with potential side effects. So why is such a central EU registration attractive? Well, for sure, it is one procedure and you have one counterpart that makes it, especially, as Barbara also mentioned, for SMEs like us, small companies specialized in something with limited resources, much easier to treat such a process. So we have DMA, we have a counterpart, we have one procedure, we have one language. That is also important. It is actually well structured. The requirements, I say, seem clear because at first sight, the regulation seems very clear what is to be provided in order to be successful in obtaining a registration. If successful at once, the product is available in all the EU, even Norway and Iceland, but for our focus, all the EU. And that is, of course, important for us, the company, but also for the beekeeper side. No, because otherwise, a product, if it starts, let's assume we had for Spain, the last presentation. If a product starts with a registration in Spain, then afterwards the company still needs to roll it into the other countries, and that can take until it reaches, especially the smaller ones, quite some time, years even. And where it seems more attractive. So for us, the decision for that process was quite clear because, I mean, now with experience, we know on paper, it seems clear. Of course, you go for the central procedure. It seems faster. Actually, in our experience, of course, monitoring our dear fellows in the market, our competitors, it is often much easier and faster to get a national registration than a central registration. Clarity in requirements, as said, that at least in our case, in the end, we came amongst a lot of obstacles that were unforeseeable for us and were not foreseeable from the regulation. The transparency in the decision process seems greater than it is. As in principle, the decision is finally taken by the so-called, I should mention that, CVMP, the Committee for Veterinary Medicines Products. Each member state has a representative. There are some additional functions. And this, let's say, roundtable comes together, evaluates such an application for marketing authorization, and finally agrees on a positive or negative benefit risk ratio, meaning this product should be authorized for Europe, for the European Union or not. So this process seems very transparent. In the end, we realized it isn't as transparent as it seems. And the costs, it also, one would believe that if you do one process, the costs would be lower. That is also not necessarily the case. And that is relevant as we are in a niche market. From our side, of course, it is always from companies registering products, we have to make the calculation when we register a product, putting all the investment and costs in. Will we have a return on our investment, right? I mean, we are commercial companies. We have to make finally also money from it. So the cost block of a registration is very high in the overall costs of bringing a product to the market. Then there is, I'm going to say, some disadvantages or maybe challenges. We had to provide study data for 3 climate zones, and I believe that will still be the case. In principle, that's good, right? We had to provide studies for the so-called continental climate zone, for the Mediterranean, and for the now I can't say it, for the coastal climate zones, right? So that is good because we had, for example, this address of the type of bees. It doesn't specify the genetic line of bees, which I personally believe is good because there is a huge variety. But the requirement is, okay, show that your product works in the different environmental conditions in all the EU. I believe that is good. However, that means that compared to national registrations, that can mean potentially 3 times the effort for a registrant, a company, to produce this field data. And producing field data can easily end up being one of the most expensive parts of a dossier. The CVMP is not really accessible. So this turned out to be challenging. The people finally deciding if the product should come to the market or not are not, you can't easily approach them. It is very difficult, let's say, to sit down and talk about what is the true problems of moving forward. There is a process behind. You have an evaluation, you get a list of questions. So there's a formal back and forth, right? But when it comes to unexpected, let's say, discrepancies or maybe even misunderstandings on how to specifically in something so different to the general products like bees, to talk about it, is very difficult to talk about it. To be very honest, that was one of the main challenges, to have the non-written communication on how to move forward. And then the excellent question from Fanny. No matter the product, there is no flexibility regarding the rules from the European level, and therefore EMA has to execute it, and EMA has no flexibility in the decision-taking process. This we have suffered a lot from during the registration, and now also especially after registration, in adoptions you have to do afterwards. This really is, I can tell you, for companies a major disadvantage versus national registrations, that the agency that might understand your problem cannot deviate from regulation, Fanny, and this really is a problem. And the regulation is pushing national agencies to the same principle, where national agencies had still some space of flexibility if they understood that a product was not fitting entirely into the framework of regulation, to give some flexibility. That really is a problem. And this is something I would hope that, I mean, I know Barbara is probably aware of this, that in the decision-taking process or creation of regulations for the future will have more of an importance. And then we have the situation that member states can be in opposition to the product coming on the market, individual member states. And this also turned out for us to be quite difficult, because if you directly go into national registration, you will also hear from the national agency directly their concerns. In such a central procedure, you will not hear their concerns until the very end. And then it may or be too late to address them, or you may actually really understand what it is that you have to address in order to, let's say, relief from that potential problem, because maybe it's a question of communication, or also you could have maybe adopted the strategy in how you register your product. That is, let's say, kind of a hidden part. And finally, costs, as said, it seems to be more cost effective. It was necessary. Our experience was it also took longer than expected. We started the process in 2012, and we finally obtained the authorization in 2017. The costs were almost double the budget. It was a great experience, especially the studies, which also were the most expensive and overshoot the budget the most. But it was very good. We learned still a lot about our own product, about testing with bees. It was very good. The process is robust. What does that mean? All what Barbara presented you, the EMA as an institution works really well. I can say that with all troubles, the process laid out and the idea that essential registration cannot be, or finally the decision for bringing a product to the market or not, is more difficultly influenced by individual players or even member states, did hold true. As an example, we had Germany strongly opposed to the registration of VMPs for political reasons. Finally, even Germany could not prevent VMPs to go on the market, as it was a product that at that time was, especially for the treatment before honey harvest in all the Mediterranean climates, highly needed to have a legal product available for that indication. So the process was robust, and that was actually a positive experience.
You have 1 minute, okay?
Yes, and I think I'm almost through. Thank you. So here you have an overview of the studies we had to do for the product VMP, to show you it was extensive and finally also very, very good experience. I'm going to speed up. And here I'm going to come to, I call this wish list. I was told this this gathering here, for our webinar, this conference is also to look for solutions. First of all, I believe it would be very good if overall us as the industry, not us as BeVital, us as the industry, are more included into these discussions, because we can tell you a lot of the problems we face, and often they are maybe logistical. Of course, they're mainly regulatory. I believe it is very important that there would be a bee-specific contact person at EMA. This might not relieve from the problems of not having a specific regulation of flexibility for bees medicines, but at least it would give companies a good opportunity to evaluate the options of registering, essentially. I believe it is very important that there is lobbying for apiculture-specific regulation. Your point, Fanny. I believe that we need a harmonized dispense regulation. As you have heard from the 4 countries presentation, there's differences in how medicines, even centrally registered, finally will be given out to the beekeeper. Beekeeping is very different to other livestock. In other livestock, you have a veterinarian coming to the stable, giving an injection to the cow or the pig. In bees, it is mainly, and in the vast majority, the beekeeper, the animal owner, applying the veterinary medicine. This is a problem that is not properly reflected in regulation and creates a lot of problem, and actually favors illegal products that are more easily accessible than legal products to the user. So think of this: illegal products are more easily available than legal products, right? For human scale, that would mean that we have cocaine more easily available than alcohol. That is a problem per se for the whole industry when it comes to proposing the use of legal products. Apiculture-friendly distribution routes, that's kind of the same point. And what I think is also very important is the understanding that veterinary medicines products, they need to be more attractive than illegal products. Cost is of course a factor, but cost will always be much higher to produce a legal product. So Juan mentioned subventions. Subventions are of course a good mechanism to offset the cost difference at the user, but I also believe it needs to go hand in hand with a sort of level of strict sanctions. For example, we are here discussing the level of regulation of bringing these products to the market. We as a company are often the ones tipping off the agencies of illegal products in the market. And it is often to the point that we have to insist that measures may be taken against illegal products. And the agencies themselves are often not really knowing where to start, because of course an illegal product, sometimes it's even hard to find them on the internet. You have to have physical people visiting the market, controlling shops, controlling beekeepers. That is true effort compared to regulating us, legal companies, where you can look us up in the database and you can send an inspector once every 2 years. And if you find some irregular behavior, you can immediately sanction us and you can get a hold of us. So there's a big discrepancy in regulate or control. There's a much higher level of control of legal players versus illegal activities. Thank you very much for your attention. And I put any questions, but I believe Noah, this is up to you if we actually have time for questions.
No, we don't have time. So we go for Remy from Beto Pharma. And because I mean, I wanted to have had a lot more discussion, but we just already, let's say, the time ran by and that's it. So I'm not sure if at the end all of you will have the brains and the motivation to stay and discuss the two issues that we wanted. But well, if not, then yeah, that's the way it was. Otherwise, if you think it is still possible, we can stay. So Remy, please.
Yes.
Where
Is it
are you?
okay for you or?
Yes, go. We don't see your presentation in full screen.
Okay, as usual. Let me check. Sorry. I will try like this, just
Okay.
to try to not lose some time. Sorry.
It's okay. It was when we tested it work. I really don't understand why now it doesn't. Anyway,
Me neither. So
please go for it.
yeah, okay. So thank you very much for the invitation and hello to everyone. So I will try to share a little bit the view of Veto Pharma, so a French company. So we are working in the honeybee health, so with producing, of course, medicine to fight viral mites. It's our main objective. So our commitment in Veto Pharma is to have a sustainable innovation and development, to develop, of course, and guarantee, safe product with high quality, because we think it's the most important fact to have a product that works, that is safe for beekeepers, safe for bees, and of course, safe for the consumer at the end. And it is regulatory. We need to have this kind of product. Of course, to reduce our environmental impact, to increase links with stakeholders and develop partnership, because we are better with other people. We cannot do everything on our own. And of course, to support and contribute to the development of the beekeeping industry. So in Veto Pharma, we have a very big research and development. We think we are the only player in the animal health industry to have a full team on R&D for the bee market, and to have an experimental apiary. So this apiary is help us to test our new product or already available product to check if it's still effective or not. We have more than 300 hives to check it, and more than 10 people in full time to work on new solution. So as I told you, 10 people in R&D. We have a B lab. So it's our main project actually, is to find new solution to fight viral mites, so new molecules. So we screened a lot of molecules to try to at the end, we hope to develop new medicine with new active ingredient, in order to give some tools for beekeepers to think a real integrated pest management strategy on their exploitation. Because of course we will not find the dream product so effective that kill all the mite in one time. I think this period is over. So we want to propose to beekeepers different tools, and they need to think on their own with, of course, vet, technician, etc., to think about a real strategy, and of course to keep the molecule we have right now, to avoid any kind of resistance, so to have a very clear rotation and with different tools. We invest approximately 8% of our revenue each year in the R&D project. And since the last 3 years, I work on a project, we call it Varroa 2.0. We made a webinar some weeks ago to explain our strategy regarding this project. And we test more than 40 molecules to see if there could be good candidates to fight viral mite, and of course to be very safe for bees, beekeepers, and consumer. Just for your knowledge, and in addition with Dominic's speech, we are on a niche market. You have to know that to register a product, to develop register and put the product on the market, it's very expensive. It could be between $2 and $5 million to have a product available at the end. So of course, it's a lot of investment, and it explains the price. In addition with Dominic's pitch, it's a little bit a difficulty we have to fight between illegal treatment and homemade formulation, you know. So regarding the clinical development, we have to check that the medicine, the new product, works normally in a normal condition. So in the field, we have guidelines. So Barbara told us just before. So varroamide total infestation, colony size. Of course, each time we try to develop a trial, we try in different hive shapes. So mainly Dadant and Langstroth, because you have such amount of hive shapes different, it's just difficult to test on every hive. We need to provide the therapeutic effect, so to fight varroamide and be safe for bees. And of course, regarding residues, we cannot work with beekeepers on this efficacy and residue studies. It's just because it's a regulatory asking from the agency. We need to have GLP data, so that are conducted by independent GLP structures. So we have GLP structures partner to test the product and to have a very clear vision and independent vision of the efficacy of the new product. Regarding registration and market authorization, so we have to compile all the data. So Barbara told us just before, so with the 4 different parts, and I'm mainly engaged on part 3 and part 4. Just for your knowledge, you have different timings, so we try to find new molecules that are not already registered to fight varroamide on honeybees. So you have to find the good molecule, and it could take between 10 and 12 years to develop a new medicine and to have the market authorization, because of course of residue maximal limit to check and to ask for every state. In Europe, for example, you have to ask, okay, are you agree with this residue maximal limit? Because if it's not already registered on honeybees, you have to develop this maximal residue limit in honey. So it could take time. And of course, it's the evaluation of benefit risk ratio. We are also working on other projects on bee nutrition as an Asian hornet, Nosemos, for example. For this kind of product, bee nutrition and Asian hornet, we are clearly working with beekeepers, because we think beekeepers can tell us, okay, your product is a good one, or there is some issue, you need to improve your formulation, for example, in bee nutrition. So we test it internally in our apiary, and after we send some samples to beekeepers to check and to have their point of view. So yes, thank you very much. I try to be very quick because I think we are late, and I hope it was clear.
Yes, thank you, Remy. We are indeed very late. Actually, we are at the time where the meeting should be finishing. So my question is very clear to you. Can you please stop the sharing?
I tried. I don't know what to do. Sorry.
It's okay.
I think it's okay.
So my proposal to all of you and to those of you in the room is actually to raise your hand if you can stay. We had prepared actually just two discussion rooms to discuss 2 main topics. Well, we have more topics, but actually to, let's say, well, the 2 main topics now that I think it makes more sense to brainstorm, profiting that we are all of us here, is about, well, maybe the 2 elephants in the room. One is what to do with the illegal uses. So how to solve the situation, how we can help with that. And then the other one is how to help the distribution in those countries that are smaller or where the beekeeping is less important, let's say, or have less market interest. The idea, and according to what we have seen in the different by the different member states, let's say, is that we have problems of big countries and we have problems of small countries, maybe. So that's why we thought about distributing these the people more interested in illegal uses from big countries and distribution from small countries. But this is just a proposal. Dominique, you want to say something? And Annette also.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to raise our hand if we can stay, so I can.
No, but no,
stay.
not yet. So,
sorry.
Me too. That was the same thing. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So the proposal now is then to continue. I think it's going to be very short, 20-minute discussion. Okay, we are not going to go more than that. We are going to divide us between these two topics: brainstorming to solve or to help solving the illegal uses, brainstorming to help solving the distribution issues. Okay, so now please raise your hand, those who can stay. Here the present, you cannot stay. Very good. Okay, and you are ready to discuss about this. Very good. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, 6. Cool, very good. So at least that's very good. So for those of you who cannot stay, thank you very much for your participation. And yeah, we will keep you posted about the discussions that happened today. Okay. And for those of you then, so you can now leave the room. Thank you very much for having been here today. And then